Hey everybody, I'm actually recording this at the end of the video, but I want to point out something that's very important. I'm using Unity 5.3.5 right now, 5.3.5. There's a big bug in 5.4 and all of the 5.4 versions right now dealing with exporting textures for the procedural materials. It doesn't affect the actual models or customization or anything like that. It's only on exporting the textures, which is a key component for customizing textures, which was what you're going to be doing in this video. So if you go to my website, infinitypbr.com, and log in, at the top there's current best version, which is currently 5.3.4 and 5.3.5. By the time you watch this video, the bug may have been fixed. So all of these known bugs are here. The mass exporter won't work in 5.4.x, and this will change when that's updated. At some point, one of the 5.4s, or maybe it's going to be a 5.5, I don't know, the issue will get fixed. And so this is only for dealing with texture customization, and just check this known bugs for this and other small issues that you might need to be aware of. Hey everyone, welcome to the updated demo for the Weapons and Armor Pack number 1, or PBR Weapons and Armor Pack number 1. I wanted to go through this because I'm afraid that sometimes it might be very overwhelming to see everything that's available here, and I wanted to create a quick video to show you exactly how to use everything so that it can become a little less overwhelming, and maybe you can get the hang of it real fast and start creating some killer weapons for your game. Custom weapons at that. So this is the one of the texture creation scenes. These are new scenes with the package. You go into your SFA Studios here, and again, or not again, I haven't said it before, but if my window is different than yours, I apologize. I've customized it. But in your project view, under SFA Studios, you'll find the Weapons and Armor down here. Outside of that, you'll find the demo scenes. If you have any of my other stuff, then you'll find other demo scenes in there. We have all these texture creation scenes, and so I've loaded up the sword and dagger. I've separated them because I didn't want to overwhelm your system by having to load all of the materials at once. Most likely doing so wouldn't be an issue, but for some computers it might start crashing or lagging if you have to load up 32 of these at once. These procedural materials, which are the files that create these the look you're seeing here on the weapons, are meant for in-editor use only. They're meant for creating textures rather than for using in-game. And we're going to create some textures today that are meant for using in-game with the standard shader. When I'm done, I'm going to upload all these. Let me start that part over. The package as it is right now is actually quite large. It's over 1 gigabyte in size, maybe over 2 gigabytes or close to 2 gigabytes. I can't include all the maps for these in the download because it would just be too large. And so instead, you can create your own, as I'm about to do right now, or if you go to www.infinitypbr.com, click down to the Weapons and Armor. If you log in, let me just log in real quick. If you log in, you'll be able to put in your invoice number from the purchase on the Unity Asset Store and register the package. And when you do that, you can click down here to the downloads, and right here there will be a new download with all the maps that I'm about to create right now. So if you don't want to worry about customizing the textures yourself, and you just want to jump right into them using your game, then just definitely go to that website and download that. Alright, so I apologize if I'm going fast. Luckily you can pause and rewind. I don't want to make the video too terribly long. So the first thing we're going to do here is look at the actual materials themselves. So this sword number 4 here is a cool sword. It's one of my favorites. It actually moves and has animation on it. So if we look at one of the materials here, all the prefabs and materials are in the same folder under the SFB Weapons and Armor 1 folder. And if we click on this here, this is a procedural material. So it works like a regular material with the standard shader, but it has all these other options, and there's a lot of options. Alright, so all these options, don't get overwhelmed. There's a ton you can do, but it's pretty simple, and for the most part you probably won't be doing too many extreme things here. So the first thing we're going to look at here is this main section. there's a damage blend. Most of these objects do have a damage version, so if you click this slider all the way to the top, you'll see there's a slightly more used and damaged version, and you can slide between that to get the look you want for your objects. We're going to keep it right there. Make sure for the next step this enable texture modification is checked. That affects everything above the ground dirt. So these are all the sections unique to this one blade. The blade inset, which is this gold area, blade highlights. So there's a whole lot of sections here, and each one is one part of the object. So for blade here, it's just most of the silver blade, and if we want, we can modify that. For silver metal, it's easy to see with the overlay blend the changes. Just bring that overlay blend up, and you can bring it up as much as you want or as little as you want, and then you can choose whatever color you want, and you can create a lot of different looks just from that overlay blend. So now we have a little rose gold color or pink gold color. You can also change the roughness value, which makes it much more shiny or much less shiny. Most of these start out right in the middle. Overlay blend starts out as nothing. You can do more: hue, saturation, lightness, contrast. You can adjust whether or not there's going to be AO added to the overlay blend. That's only affected when the overlay blend is up. And you can do more. We're going to work about custom stuff in a bit. So each one of these has a separate section here. So the clamps, you can bring up the lightness of the clamps if you want them to be more silver. Or you can add some orange or gold to it to make the clamps now look gold. So there's a lot you can do just by changing these, and it's really easy and it's really fast. If you're really into it, you could spend hours customizing these, but we're not going to spend hours today because we don't have hours, or at least I don't. So there's a lot you can do with those. I'll let you deal with all of them. Each object has a bunch of options, anywhere from 2 to 16, I think, different options. Then we have the basic things like this ground dirt here. These have their own enable toggle, so if you turn that on, you can see the ground dirt down here came up, and you can bring it up higher if you want, and you can change how dense it is or change the contrast of it. You could even change the color of it to something else that fits your fancy better. If you want to make it more shiny like mud, just bring the roughness down so it's more shiny, and then you can click the masks metal. That way the part that are covered by dirt isn't metal and it reflects differently. You can see that here a lot. If I don't cover that, then it reflects as if it's metal itself, so you'll want that probably toggled on right there. Ceiling dirt, similar from the top. Surface dirt is a great one. If we change the color to something really obnoxious like red, you can see the effect more, because it's oftentimes hard to see as you're working with it. But you can bring the edge dirt up and down, and the amount up and down, and you can see how it grows pretty much from the edges and inside out. But when you get an effect that you kind of like, you can then change the color back to your whatever dirt color you have, and you can always toggle this on and off to see what you get. I'm going to let you look at all the others on your own as well. There's more directional dirt that's from any side, damage and wearing and tearing and all that stuff. This bottom section is what we're really going to be focusing on today. That's for the custom options, like custom blade, custom blade inset, etc. You can actually change the material completely here. Instead of just using sliders to change the color and whatnot, we can actually change this to completely new materials altogether. Generally, the normal way to do it is just by bringing our maps that we've exported into these sections, and then going up to the blade section over here and clicking use custom texture. It's going to turn black because we actually have no maps in that section. But we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to use this copy this to that controller and this giant palette that's currently just a bunch of colors to work with easily choosing which new materials to put on these weapons. So the first thing we need is materials. Now again, just like I can't include the default maps, I also can't include material maps because they take up too much space for the download. So if you go back to infinitypbr.com and register, you'll be able to get all the downloads if you want to just jump right into it. Otherwise, go into this base materials folder and you can create your own. So there's a whole bunch of options, again, just like the others, a bunch of different materials, and then in the material generators there's a few more. I think base material is having issues, but base metal works really well, and that's going to be one that you kind of want to use, I think, a lot for the weapons. So you can play with these just by choosing different metal types, and then each one has all their options as well. I'm going to start with a couple of these though. So let's look at the leather 2 here. I'm going to select that. It starts out with this white leather, which is a pretty good look. And again, I just want to change this, so I can bring up this overlay blend, and since the color is brown already, now it's a brown leather. So that's pretty nice. I like that already. So I'm not going to do any of the other damage and special effects and all that. And look at that, I don't even have to do overlay color. I can come down here, and there's a leather color right here. There you go. So it's more than one way to get the look I want. So there's a brown leather that I like. Alright, so I like this look. I want to export this. I want to use this perhaps to replace one of my handles with this leather. And since I want to do that, I need to export these maps. So I'm going to go up to my window with my material select. I'm going to go to Window, Export Material. There's also a hotkey for it. I'll bring up this new window and I'm going to just dock it down here. Since the material was selected, it's already pre-populated. Otherwise, you can just drag your material down there. So group name, this is going to save it under a folder. I'm going to call this Weapons and Armor, Base Materials, and I'm going to remove emissive, remove height. I don't need either of those. For set normal map mode, do not check that. Make sure that's unchecked. The normal map that gets exported needs to be set as a texture. If we were using it in-game, we would need it set as a normal map, but since we're using it with this palette system, we need it set as a texture. So make sure that's unchecked, and definitely merge with group name, because we're going to do a few and we want them all under this same Weapons and Armor Base Material folder. I'm going to override material name and call this Leather Brown, and then I'm going to not copy previous group. That's something we would do later when we're exporting swords and we want to maybe have one sword with many different color options, but all the roughness and normal maps are the same. We can use this to share the normal map from the first export, so that we save on texture space and RAM. So you can ignore that for now. And once we're ready with that, let's just export. Unity will do its thing, and now under Export Material, we've got this new folder, Weapons and Armor Base Material. Our materials here, again, normal map is not marked as normal map. That's correct. Do not click Fix Now. If a pop-up says some are not marked as normal map, do not click the Fix Now. And then you'll find your textures right in here. We have the albedo, opacity, ambient occlusion, metal, rough, and the normal map. So again, that's pretty much how you export materials. And I'm going to do a couple more. Like for the leather, I also want a white leather. So let me bring this down to white again, or this grayish white. There we go. I already have everything selected here. I don't want to use leather brown. If I did, it would just create leather brown 2 up here. Instead, I'm going to call this leather white. Again, click Export Material. There we go. So now we've got leather white here as well. So I'm going to create a few more of these. I'm going to speed up the video so that you don't have to hear me talk about it all. But I'm going to create some metals and maybe even some ice, or maybe this stylized ice right here, just so you can get a variety of looks in these. Alright, I'm also going to delete these materials. I don't need those. Alright, so I've got a bunch of different looks here. So I'm going to go back into my scene here, and let's populate this palette object. Now this is a prefab that is in the base weapons and armor right here, and it's using this material, this palette marble. Ignore the marble part because it can be anything you want. Basically, this allows you to put up to 16 custom materials into it, and so we're going to populate these, and to do so, we're going to go into our textures here, and for each one of these, just going to drag them over. So the albedo goes in here, ambient occlusion down here, metal rough, and the normal. We can ignore the height and emissive. So we're going to do that for our different materials, and I'm going to put them in an order that I see fit. Alright, so I populated these 7 custom materials. I'm going to go up to the top here. I am going to click the Enable Texture Modification. I am going to show all materials on this grid. I want the numbers, otherwise the numbers will go away. I do want the numbers. And if you do want to adjust the damage blend for all your objects, you can do that here. I'm going to keep that at 0 though. Now for each of the materials that I just added, material 1 through 7, I'm going to click the Use Custom Texture button right here. You'll see them populating on the Alright, so now we've got our materials here, and if you want you can look at them in different lighting or whatnot. There we go, get some reflection so you can see how they reflect. And you can do up to 16, and if you really want you can have multiple palettes as well, so you can have really any number of palettes to work from. You can make a metal palette, a leather palette, and so on. So now that we have that populated, we're going to go to our copy this to that, and in parentheses that's from where it will be copied. In this case it could be from palette. So again, don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of options here, but it's pretty straightforward. It's pre-set up for you. The idea here is that the palette marble, then each section, for in this case material 1 through 16, will copy onto the section, in this case the barbarian dagger, main, metal blade. All those sections that we were able to adjust earlier with the overlay colors and all that can be adjusted here as well, but instead we're copying the materials from the palette over to these sections. So we can do it just one at a time right here, or we can do the entire material, or at the very bottom we can do everything all at once. So let's just do one at a time so I can show you real quick what we got here. We have material 3 as our copper material. So we can go down to dagger number 1, I believe it's the one on the left here. Make sure we've got our metal right here, or metal blade. This will separate leather and metal, so oftentimes if you see that, just choose the metal blade or leather if you want to get specific. So we're going to go with material 3, which is our copper. So copy the palette marble, material 3 to metal blade, copy that. And we don't get to see an update because we didn't copy the main over. The main has the enable texture modification button, so we need to copy that as well. There we go. So now the dagger 1 here has the copper material on its blade. You can still go back into dagger 1 if you find its material. You can still go back in there and you can see it down here that the copper is there. And you can still change and add more specifics if you want. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But just know that if you do change this again and you come back to the copy this to that, if you click the copy all button, then all your changes will be erased. There we go. Now I copied all, so what we ended up doing was copying all of the material 1, which is a metal, to all of these, so the leather and the hilt and everything. Now that's not what I wanted to do at all. Not at all. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to populate all of these. Click the copy actions for Barbarian Dagger. There we go. So now we've got the update right there. Oh, I see. There's no sheath on this because it's just the dagger. So this material is actually coming from the Barbarian, Human Male Barbarian, or the RPG Barbarian pack, and there's no sheath. So leather hard is for the sheath. So if I wanted the leather down here, change these to 7, click that for the soft grip. There we go. So now we have our white leather as the grip. Now if we go over to number 2 here, dagger 2, same deal. We can just populate this just by choosing which material we want. So for the blade we can go for the copper. For the guard, let's go for the keep it as is. Or if we keep it as is, that means we can't copy. So or you could delete, but then you'd have to repopulate. So we're going to make that material 1 for the light, and for the top guard we're also going to keep that light. Actually, let's make those dark in order to grip. We'll make that the white leather. Pommel, make it the dark. And then the gem, I want to do that with the ice. So my ice was material 5. So for the gem, let's turn that to material 5 and copy those over. There we go. So now we have a completely different dagger for dagger number 2 as well. So what this whole process is actually doing is making it easier. So if you want to use custom materials, which is often something that you might want to do, it's so much easier just to use this rather than having to drag all 4 maps over and click all the different buttons. For sword 1, I wanted to show what it might look like to have the ice blade. There we go. So now we've got this sword with sort of a stylized ice blade. I want to show what you could do with that, because if you go back into the material here, now we go to blade right here, you'll see down here we have the materials pre-populated for us, so we didn't have to drag those over. And now that we have this custom turned on, we can actually mask out the AO and the normal. I'm going to select the sword over here, the material over here, so that we don't have the wireframe. So if you notice the slight change when we mask it, it's unmasked right now. If we mask it, we got a much more smoother look. And that's because the normal and AO from the blade, from the metal, is now being masked out. So the only normal and AO we have is actually from the ice material itself, which you can see right here in all the blank spaces being filled in. So it makes a much more realistic ice blade than it did before. And if you wanted to, you can offset the material. If it doesn't quite look right, you can offset that custom material. You can also bring this smaller, make those both 2, and now you'll have a slightly smaller. You can go even further and go 4, and you'll it's basically so there's a lot you can do with this. And if you ever think, oh man, I've messed it up, I liked it better the way it was the original, just go up to here and click the reset button. Alright, so let's say you are ready to export your materials. You like whatever look you have here, whether it be the default or something you've customized yourself, and you want to export these for use in-game. The very easy way to do that is use this mass exporter tool. And each one has the substances, the materials in here, and just like the single one, you can choose a group name, choose whether you want to remove emissive and height. In this case, you definitely want to set the normal map mode to normal map, and you want to merge with whatever group name you give it. And if you do choose a previous group name, then you can use the same maps from those. So if I just change the color of the metal from silver to green or whatnot, then I can select all these and save a lot of disk space and RAM space later by only having the new materials have a new albedo map, and they can share the AO, the metal rough, and the normal map from the previous export. So I can do that for this, but I've got another demo scene here called Mass Exporter All. The only thing this has here is this mass exporter with all the Weapons and Armor 1 materials. Now this is going to take Unity a while because it's got to export all these and import the maps, but it's a lot easier than doing it by hand. So I'm going to save all of the default textures by calling this Weapons and Armor Default Textures. And I'm going to remove my emissive, remove height. I am going to set normal map mode. There's no group to merge yet with, but I'm going to leave that on. I'm going to click Export Materials, and this will take a while, so we'll come back when it's done. Alright, that wasn't so difficult, was it? Now we've got in our Export Material here, Weapons and Armor Default Textures, and if you look at all these, they are all 100% ready to go for your game. Isn't that amazing? So if we go back to our prefabs here, we can take out Axe 1, go down here and look at it, and it looks nice, but it has the procedural material on it. And so go back over here, go to our default textures, take Axe 1, drag that down there, and boom, ready to go, game ready, axe with all the material on it. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to export these. Now, I do always suggest, as I said earlier, I always suggest that you create textures in a brand new project that is not your main project. That way you don't have to have all those SBSAR procedural materials in your project. Please do that. Like, I really highly suggest you do. So hopefully you did. And if that's the case, now that you've got these default textures and you want to get them into your project really easily, all you have to do is take this folder here, right click and choose export package. I'm going to do that right now with the base materials too, because this is what I'm going to upload to my website, infinitypbr.com, where you can download these. So I'm just going to select those. I'm going to click export package. Well, and first I'm going to deselect include dependencies. If you include dependencies, you might get extra files that you don't want, so I'm going to deselect that. If you notice here, the file structure will stay in place, which is pretty cool. You can go through and make sure you want all of those. I'm going to click export and then call this weapons and armor 1 base and default textures. I'm going to save that. Unity is going to create a .unity package, and if you open up your main project and just double click that, it'll import these files into your project. So when you import weapons and armor, that pack into that, just deselect all the procedural materials so that you don't end up getting all those, and instead bring in these materials right here. So alright everybody, so here's my package. I'm going to upload this to the website. If you have any questions, contact me on the forum. You can post publicly, and maybe other people can help you out too if I can't get to it right away. And have a great day, and happy game making.